Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. How old were you when you got your first cell phone?
I was 16.
16 years old.
16 years old. It was one of those Nokia brick phones.
Oh, okay.
It had it was just the green and black on the screen. Not only did it not have text messaging, but we didn't even know what text messaging was. I had no concept of that.
I specifically remember text messaging becoming a bigger thing when I was in college. So this is like 2007, 2008. And I remember being so relieved when that happened because I hate talking on the phone all the time. Text messaging, you just got something short to tell people. You can just, shoot it out to them and then it's done. You don't have to have a long conversation. How you doing? I don't care about any of that. I just want to know this one thing.
I think about this a lot, and I try to remember. I use my cell phone all the time for years and years. I had cell phones for years before I had text messaging.
Yeah.
And so that was just phone calls, and I don't possess a real clear memory of what that was like, but I think I must have just been having lots of really short, informal phone calls. I think I was probably talking to the same handful of people most frequently. And, I didn't even have, I don't remember if my first cell phone even had caller ID.
Yeah.
Or if it was just a...
Yeah,
but
can't remember
at
in the
some
heyday.
point,
Yeah.
the second cell phone, I had a flip phone. It had caller ID. So I think for years it was really just, oh, I see who's calling.
Yeah.
Answer it. Hey, what's up? They get right to the point. There's no preamble. There's no how you doing. It's like, hey, we're doing this thing and that. Okay, sounds good. See you there.
That's largely what cell phone conversations were for me is, where is everybody? I want to get there. I was late to the cell phone game, though. I feel like almost everybody had a cell phone by 2006. I don't think I had one till 2007, 2008-ish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It was a late in the game. My first cell phone was a burner phone. If you remember these, they're featured heavily.
Track phone?
Yeah, track phone. That's exactly what it was. These are featured heavily in the wire because you can't tap a burner phone. You just throw it away and then you get a new cell phone. Right. I didn't use it for that purpose. I largely just had a cell phone for emergencies. If I got stuck on the side of the road, I could call my parents or something like that for regular communication with your friends. And I ended up getting a plan. I think my first cell phone with a plan was a Crazer. Do you remember the Razor?
Yeah, I remember the Motorola Razor.
Yeah, the Motorola Razor was this flip phone and it's super slim.
Super thin.
Everyone thought it was
as
sleek.
Thin as a razor.
You were so cool if you had one of these Razor phones. I had the generation after that, which was a like slimmed down version of the Razor, and it was called a Crazer. No vowels in that name, Crazer. It's just
C-R.
No, K.
Z-R.
Starts with K.
Whoa, yeah. That's crazy.
Crazer, yeah. My first smartphone, though, I tell you this, was a Windows smartphone.
I think about that all the time, and I don't bring it up nearly as often as I want to, because I just feel like you don't want to hear it. But that was one of the funniest things to me ever, is you had a Windows mobile phone. That's just so stupid. I thought that was so funny. I just thought about that 2 days ago. You're never going to live that one down.
I couldn't afford an iPhone at the time, but it was just the Windows phone.
Well, now you're the age where you can go to Cricket Mobile.
I don't even have a cell phone anymore, so problem solved.
Perfect. We are back. We are live. Joey Z again on the mic, here with Jimmy or James. Nice to see you again.
I'm right here with you.
We have a lot has happened since we last talked to you.
In the break.
Big difference from the last time. As you know, we've been out here in the woods, undisclosed location, quite some time now, but we have managed to establish communication. And I think I can say direct communication with someone back at home.
Back at home in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is currently sitting under Jerry Novak's thumb.
Yeah, as far as we know. Now, we have heard a few things back and forth. What we've been receiving most recently is messages, and we figured out how to do this over the airwaves. So whoever's helping us back at home is sending us information. But we have just gotten word from Mr. Producer that it looks like a message is being received presently. He believes that it's Morse code.
Yeah.
So sounds like he is on that. He's receiving the message, transcribing it as best as he can. None of us are all that versed in Morse code.
It's going to take a little while to decode it, but hopefully by the end of this episode, we're going to know what that Morse code message from Sheboygan, Wisconsin says, and then we're gonna let the world know.
We're really out here in the cold, so I think whatever we can learn, the better. And I hope that it's good news.
Yeah, I do too. Stay tuned, listeners.
So aside from all that, what are we talking about today, Jimmy?
So I think it's going to take Ma Bell a couple days to repair the phone lines.
The phone lines are a mess.
Yep, phone lines are a mess, lady. Phones in Home Alone. I feel like this comes up often. One of the not criticisms that I hear, but I often hear people say that if Home Alone took place in a world where cell phones were as ubiquitous as they are now, that plot is not going to stand. Like, it's just so easy for families to communicate with one another now that there's no way you forget your kid at home and you can't get back with him and let him know what's going on.
It's true. It's true. And this is sort of a criticism that the fair weather fans of Home Alone, it sort of comes up around the holidays, right? Folks reminding themselves that this movie exists. And that's been sort of a refrain from some fans that they sort of think is clever. And they're not wrong. It's true.
I feel like Mac even did an advertisement recently where he was himself having been left home alone, but he had a smartphone provided by Google or something.
I think that was for a Google Home.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I think like as soon as he comes down, he asks his family where they are and they say, "We're in Paris. We're sorry. We left you behind." And then he just spends the week having fun with his Google whatever device. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's acknowledged. It's known.
Yeah.
Sure. But the fact is, cell phones, well, they did exist in 1989, 1990. But we're not expecting even the McAllisters to have them.
I think it's possible they had a car phone, but not a cell phone. Sure. And even cell phones back then, that's not international.
They may have had a cellular phone, but you wouldn't have taken that phone with you overseas.
Yeah, exactly. So over the course of Home Alone, there are several scenes that involve a phone conversation. The first scene actually involves a phone conversation with Kate talking to a friend of hers. This is where we learn that the McAllisters have a dog, which his name is Ralphie, as we learned from the novelization. Not much happens in that scene as far as phones go. The next scene, though, is pretty important. And this is where we learn from the electric repairman who comes down and says, "Ma'am, as the McAllisters are leaving the house, loading into the shuttle van, getting ready to go to O'Hare."
And Kate thinks that this doesn't apply to her at all.
Exactly.
This is what we call irony.
Yes. Yeah. And so the electric repairman is trying to be a good serviceman and go up and tell you what's going on with your house. Your power's back, but unfortunately, the phone lines are a mess, and it's going to take Ma Bell a couple days to patch them up, especially around the holidays.
Especially around the holidays.
Yep. Okay, thanks. See ya.
Yep.
He even seems a little wounded. If you watch his face as she closes the door, he's like, "Oh, I tried. I tried to be a good guy."
This is really going to matter to you a lot more than you know.
So that's when we learn that the phones are out. And as soon as the McAllisters get to Paris, the first thing Kate tries to do is call home, I assume. We actually don't see the end of that conversation. She gets to the payphone, steals it from the French woman, and then she puts a coin in the French payphone. Where did they get that change from? I would assume they only have American currency at that point.
Yeah, I mean they don't have francs in they may have exchanged currency at their own bank before leaving.
It's possible.
Possibly, but not change.
No.
They wouldn't have she wouldn't have francs in her purse.
How many francs would it even take to make an international phone call in 1990 from Paris to to Chicago?
Well, I think that's really the better question. And I think the answer to that is if you were making an international call on a public phone in 1990, you would have needed, now some listeners may remember this term. You may have needed what we used to call a calling card.
Calling card? What's that?
Harry, that's our calling card.
Oh, it's when you
card,
flood someone's basement to let them know you've been there.
It's kind of like that,
okay, yeah.
This could also be a card that you prepay for, and it has an 800 number on it. You dial that 800 number, and then you input your calling card's code. And then that sends you to an exchange where you can then call the number that you want to call. So this was not only a way to make long distance calls from a public phone, but this was also a way that you could make a long distance call from any phone. So imagine you are at your friend's house, right? Or a relative's house or somewhere else, right? And you need to call long distance, but long distance used to cost a lot of money. You don't want to rack up your friend's phone bill.
No.
But you could always carry with you a calling card that you'd prepaid for. You can call that 800 number on your friend's phone. It completely it reroutes it from their phone bill.
I actually used calling cards pretty frequently in the era when all of my friends had cell phones and I did not, but I didn't carry change. So I would stop at payphones and use my calling card to then call my friend's cell phone.
Now, how did that work internationally? I wasn't traveling internationally in the era of calling cards, but I got to imagine you could get an international calling card.
From everything I understand, international calls are so expensive that it is pointless to try to carry around enough change to actually pay for those calls. So everybody was using calling cards.
Even domestic long distance calls were expensive. You had to be cranking those quarters in.
Yeah. And this is something that's, I don't know, kind of foreign to the modern era. There's no such thing as long distance calls in the era of cell phones. So in that Paris scene, Kate hands her purse to her daughter and then her address book to Leslie and says, call anyone on our street, ask if they can help us, and then gives her a bunch of change. Again, like you give an American change at a payphone. How much change did you even have in your purse? And then on top of this, Leslie says when she gets back, sorry, Kate, nothing but a bunch of answering machines. How did she get to the answering machines if all of the phones are down on Lincoln Boulevard?
Curious questions.
I'm not liking where this is going.
You've really wet my noodle on this one. Is that the way to say that?
I don't know what that word is. Is it because brains look like noodles?
Noodle? You don't know what the word noodle is?
I don't know why it's referred. I don't know why the brain is referred to as a noodle. Where did that come from?
I don't know. Go look it up.
I don't have internet right now or a cell phone. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am, excuse me, I just wanted to let you know that your power is fixed, but the phone lines are a mess. It's gonna take Ma Bell a couple of days to patch them up, especially around the holidays.
Okay, thanks.
Why don't we just change the subject, okay? Ma Bell. You hear that name. I remember for at least the first 100 times that I watched Home Alone, I had no idea what that was a reference to. Ma Bell. And apparently it's a colloquialism for AT&T, which stands for the American Telephone and Telegraph Company. Founded in 1878, and it was a subsidiary of the Bell Telephone Company, which was founded by Alexander Graham Bell, famous for inventing the light bulb.
Correct.
So, in preparation for this episode, Joey and I have consulted a good friend of ours who is a telecommunications historian in his spare time. And
we really want to give the hats off to that friend of ours, too, for coming all the way out here to our undisclosed location.
Bypassing all of our traps. That was really a risk, and we appreciate that. But now, I think it's time we dig into Ma Bell. What does that mean? AT&T? So this company has been around since 1878, as I said before, subsidiary of the Bell Telephone Company until it bought its own parent company in the late 1800s. And then throughout much of the 20th century, it held a monopoly over the telephone industry in America. If you don't know this, okay, so back in the day, telephones were run by telephone companies, and you had long distance lines that ran across the entire country.
Well, first, let me just correct you there briefly. Telephones were run by a telephone company.
Yes.
As you were.
Yeah. And over time, all of the small local companies went away, and AT&T developed kind of a monopoly over the long distance lines. They had the infrastructure in place and had the resources to be able to take care of it. The local companies, though, that handled local calls from within a town or something would basically have like something like 100 subscribers or something, a really small company that serviced these areas. And over time, AT&T bought all of these local companies up until they basically controlled everything. By like the 1950s, they controlled most phones in the United States, local and long distance. And this is when the FCC comes in.
Well, and even more so than that, they had a vertical monopoly.
Yes.
So what we have learned, which, I never realized this, and it's crazy to think about, but not only was AT&T your phone provider, if you lived in the United States of America, right? Not only were they your provider for local and long distance, but they were also your exclusive provider for your phone itself.
Yes.
They owned it all. They owned the telephone lines. They owned the infrastructure. They even owned the phones.
The telephone itself.
The set.
And they also own the company that manufactured the telephones.
That's
and they
right.
required all of their customers to use only telephones that were manufactured by Western Electric, a subsidiary of AT&T. And then AT&T,
under the pretense that it was a quality control thing.
Exactly.
These are all of our lines. We maintain all of this infrastructure, and we only trust these phones.
Exactly.
So you didn't even own the phone. You didn't even buy it from Western Electric.
Yep.
You leased it from AT&T.
Yeah, it was a monthly fee that you paid throughout much of AT&T's history, and so like they just control all avenues of how this industry works essentially until the FCC gets involved in 1956, and they start realizing AT&T is getting a little too powerful. They have too much control over all of this, and steadily started chipping away at this stuff. One of the first things that they did was remove that ability of AT&T to force their customers to use their phones. As long as the tech that your customer was hooking up to the AT&T lines didn't damage the line itself, then they were free to use it whatsoever. And this opens the door for all kinds of other companies to invent all different kinds of technology. And it's over the next 10 years that we see the introduction to cordless phones, fax machines. Eventually it leads to modems and internet.
Here's the other thing there too, is that importantly, there was a consent decree in the 50s. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
And it restricted AT&T to what's called a common carrier. So to common carrier communications, they were limited to that. So that was effectively keeping them out of the burgeoning computer industry at the time.
Yep. Fast forward a little bit past this, we're getting past Western Electric. In the mid-1970s, the FCC decides AT&T is a monopoly, and they file a suit, an antitrust suit. And it's over the next 6 or 7 years, the FCC is in court with AT&T, and they decide. Actually, in 1982, it was decreed that AT&T could keep control of the long distance lines, but all of the local telephone company suppliers had to be broken away from AT&T, and they became independently run companies, 7 of them, called the Baby Bells.
Now, importantly, also during this time, the big breakup, the antitrust suit that lasts for years, simultaneously in the 70s, you start to see new companies emerging, eyeing that long distance market, going, I think this monopoly is about to break down. And so that's when you get these early long distance companies, specifically long distance companies like MCI and Sprint. Those are a couple of the first alternatives in the game.
Yeah, that 1970s ruling really like spurred a lot of innovation. A lot of people realized this game was going to open up for other players, and it wasn't just going to be AT&T.
So the Baby Bells, a few of them were Ameritech. There was Bell South. There was 9X.
Bell Atlantic.
Yeah, and then you have the regional bells that just call themselves Bell something.
Yeah, you
right?
also have Pacific Telesis and Southwestern Bell Corporation, which is going to become a big player over the next 2 decades.
Right. So once this breakup happens, this is when the initial aftermath is sort of pocked with some chaos in the market, right?
Yeah.
So consumers started oftentimes receiving 2 separate phone bills.
Yes.
Right? They'd be getting their local from their Baby Bell, but then they'd be getting a separate long distance bill from AT&T or from one of AT&T's competitors, right?
Yep.
So you're using one phone, one line, but you're getting 2 bills at the end of each month.
And if you were lucky enough to have internet or cell phone service, I've got to imagine those came from 2 other entities as well.
Right. That could be.
Yeah.
You were probably still, if you had internet, you were probably still paying your Baby Bell bill just for making a local connection to your ISP.
Yeah.
But then the ISP is charging you for access to the internet through them.
Yeah.
But it also, there was a huge explosion of competition at that point too, and a lot of innovation.
Yes.
It's always good to remember that when a monopoly is broken up, it really lays the playing field for innovation. So that's really when you start to see a lot more affordable consumer phones.
Yep.
Answering machine technology, even later on caller ID technology.
Yep.
You don't really know that you necessarily see this outside of a monopoly.
Yes.
Right? A company that has a monopoly doesn't have nearly as much incentive to develop, even with their developmental arm, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Of the company, Bell Labs or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a whole lot of incentive to develop this new technology.
This is actually what brought down the American steel industry, is that they thought that they were so like just set in their ways. They were going to be successful forever. And then there were other countries who started innovating. Japan, Germany started creating steel and doing so in ways that were much more efficient than the American steel industry was, because they became complacent. They didn't think that they needed to innovate in order to succeed.
Competition in a marketplace, turns out, it's really essential.
It really is.
It's good for competitors.
Yeah, it's also, I don't know, I think it's good for customers
and
employees.
It's terrific for consumers. It can be good for employees. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are an employee in an industry that has competition, then you have more mobility within that industry.
Plenty of other avenues to go to. Like, talent can find places that reward talent in an industry where there's competition. That doesn't happen when everything starts being owned by just 1 or 2 companies.
We've learned so much about this topic, talking to our historian friend about this. And it's just fascinating. And it's really cool to see what can happen once in a while when there's a proper antitrust suit that breaks up a monopoly, and we really see the innovation and the competition that comes of it, ultimately making a marketplace and an industry, I would say, healthier. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. And that's not the end of the story, I would say.
The next chapter begins in 1996 when the Telecommunications Act of 1996 was passed. And this was intended to open up the ability to be a player in the telecommunications industry without being restrained by all of, the government oversight or whatever, that was put in place to basically oversee AT&T's monopoly. Companies that were up and coming felt like this was constraining their ability to innovate, and this was heavily lobbied for by corporations. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 happened, and this allows...
Well, hey, if you got a bunch of money, you should be able to spend it to convince people people of things that you want to get done. I mean, what?
Essentially, what this act does is it undoes the AT&T monopoly, because over the next 10 years, what this does
we see a bunch of the baby bells
buying each other up, merging with other versions of them, and then what we get is 3 players in the telecommunications industry by today that's all that exists. It's Verizon, Lumens, and AT&T. And all of these are just certain conglomerations of the baby bells mixed with other companies that came up during that era. Right. And essentially, it's not a monopoly, but it's pretty damn close.
The thing about, the thing about a monopoly from the federal perspective, right, and antitrust laws is that's federal law, right, and it's on a national scale. Yeah. So they're saying, well, this is a monopoly across the whole land, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens when you have 2 or 3 major conglomerates, major competitors in the marketplace, really no room for anyone else, and you're in a region where the only carrier is Verizon or AT&T, right? For you as a consumer, you're effectively under a monopoly.
You have no other options.
So what? Does it matter to you as a consumer that 3 states over you could have a different phone company, but they would effectively have a monopoly over you instead?
Yeah.
So this is often what we see happening.
Typically what you see with mergers and acquisitions. And I don't know, we'll get into some personal stories here. Both of us have worked for a company that was either acquired or merged with some other company in that industry.
I would say it's increasingly rare that you meet someone who hasn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the goal of starting a small business, is not to run it forever, but to run it long enough that a big company wants to buy it from you.
Right.
And
prove yourself.
Yeah.
Test your mettle, right?
Yeah.
In this marketplace as a plucky little startup and go, hey, see, we can bring something new and unique, or that adds value to this industry.
Yes.
And we need to prove that to someone who has a ton of money, so that they can buy us all out and make a few of us all rich, so that all of our employees who spent years building this company with their own hands, simply because they weren't the founders of it, but they really are the steam engine of its success, then just get hung out to dry.
Yeah, I worked for a company that was bought by a holding company shortly before I started working for them. And I remember when I started, there was a heart and soul to that company. All of the departments worked together. They enjoyed working together. There was pride in the fact that you were making a quality product and that your customers knew they could depend on you. And you took pride in the fact that you could depend on your coworkers. When corporations come in and buy your company out, they don't give a about any of that stuff because they can't show it to the shareholders.
But what about quarterly gains?
Yeah. And so what happens is the heart and soul is just ripped out of a company. All of the talent that you had there who took pride in their work are now being forced to administer policies that are going to appease to the shareholders now. Okay. They don't care about the community. They don't even care about the town that the company exists in, because if it's cheaper, they're going to pluck it up and send it overseas or to a different state that isn't going to tax them as much.
I worked for a company that was a startup when I started with them. And very similarly, it was a very tight-knit crew. As you'll experience in many startups, we all wore a lot of hats, right? There were a lot of demands on us. The pay wasn't always great. If you'd been working for a more established competitor, you may have made more money.
Yes.
But the value was in really contributing to the active building and creation of a product, right? You really had your fingerprints on this. You had buy-in. And for me, at least, when I'm working a job, if I can't take pride in the contributions that I'm making, whatever that job is, I don't know why I'm there.
Yeah.
Right? You got to spend 8 hours a day doing something that you feel good that you've done, right?
Yeah.
And so after having worked for this company for a number of years, it got acquired, right? It was, it was sort of described as a merger, but it was a clear acquisition. We now had new corporate overlords. We all had new bosses. Our old bosses were fired. The company culture was just ham-fisted into ours.
Yes.
And then we were told, well, you still have value. No one's going to get laid off here or anything like that. We take humans in this company very, very seriously. That's our bottom line. 6 months later, everybody got laid off.
Yes.
And you know what they said? Oh, it's nothing personal. It's just business.
Oh, yeah, of course. Just business. Because
nothing personal to lose your job.
Yeah, we don't care about the communities. We don't care what that's taking away from the town that supported this company for years. I remember when my company was bought out and then gutted, I remember the former owners just bitching about what they did. We spent years building this, and then they sold it to a company that didn't care about any of that. You got your paycheck already. Nobody gives a about your legacy, okay? All that's left are the employees here who built your company up from the beginning, and now they're stuck working for corporate overlords who don't give a about them.
If they're lucky.
If they're lucky. And what happened with me is that every department becomes an enemy of the other department because now it's about not getting blame ascribed to you, not getting numbers that they're going to show to the shareholders that they can say are your fault. And then it guts the heart and soul out of the company. All of the people, all of the talent that really built it are gone. Outside hires come in and they reshape the company into something that shareholders are going to want to see. And you know what that is? Something that's good for the next quarter and nothing beyond that.
No long-term vision.
No.
For anything. Short-term profits over everything. And if they drive a company into the ground, so long as they squeeze enough juice out of that fruit,
there are plenty of assets left over that you can sell to people, and as long as you got your paycheck out of it, that's all that matters. All those people lost their jobs, whatever. They'll find new jobs for new corporations.
They'll find new jobs. There's plenty of good jobs out there, right?
I just remember I worked in customer service too, and my job over time was start to learn the product as well as I could, and then gradually it became apologizing for how the company I worked for was and how your product was. And how demeaning is that to work for a company for years, to put your heart into this, to really want to make the company better, and you just see decision after decision being made by the executives who think they know better because they know what the shareholders want, and ultimately you end up just hollowing out every company that exists, and now every place is terrible to work for.
Now, having said all that, I think it's really important to point out that capitalism works.
I will say
it's a barely flawed system, and there's really not too much to fix about it. So I just want to make it abundantly clear to everyone listening that our system that we have is as good as it can get. So it's fair to have some grievances, but be happy.
Yeah. Enjoy what you have, because the other alternative, which actually is worse, is communism.
Communism, very, very bad.
I will say.
Very bad. And we have had some wars against communism, and we haven't lost one yet. So I think just, the proof is in the pudding.
Well, you don't need to have wars with communist states because they just destroy themselves from the inside out.
Yeah, but you should anyway.
I mean, just for fun. Yeah.
Well, and
there's some resources there.
I think there's things, you want to liberate people and bring them into the capitalist fold, because capitalism is democracy.
And you know what? Drugs are bad. So let's start a war on drugs in those communist countries.
Ooh, that's a really good idea.
I like it.
It's a really good idea.
I'm going to toss that one up the chain once I get out of this shack.
We try to we dip a toe in policy once in a while, and this one is sizzling.
It's hot.
I like this one a lot.
Here, get some change out of here. Call everybody you know. Oh, Leslie, here's my address book. You and Frank, call everybody who lives on our street. Maybe somebody can help us. What am I doing? Hello? I'll have to call you back.
So, speaking of Home Alone, I was thinking about the phones in Home Alone. We've talked a little bit about that.
E.T. phones Home Alone.
That's a really good point. And I'm glad you made it.
You're welcome.
Be that as it may, we know that when the McAllisters get to Paris, after that initial volley of calls that they apparently somehow managed to make from the airport.
Yes.
Then they're at
Peter. Is that his brother's
Rob's house?
Is at Rob's house?
And Peter is making phone calls. We know through the eyes of the Wet Bandits when we are in the Murphys' house, as the Wet Bandits are robbing the Murphys, that Peter has left a call has left a message on the answering machine.
Yes,
says we're still in Paris. The number here is 51 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And Marv goes, Harry, you were right.
They're gone.
He goes, I knew they was. Right? Okay, so now we know, we've established here in the timeline, Ma Bell has gotten the phone lines back up and running.
Yep.
They're the next door neighbor, right?
Yep. This is on Lincoln Boulevard.
Right. The Murphys' phone is working. Peter is reaching the Murphys, and presumably we have to imagine, hey, something has changed. We're now able to get through.
Yeah, this is 24 hours after Kate talked to the Ma Bell guy. This is after Kevin's first night home alone. The Wet Bandits have tried to go down to the basement. They weren't successful. And then, Peter calls from Paris, reaches the Murphys, which means the phone lines have to be up. They're repaired.
Right.
Why wasn't there any effort after that to make a call to Kevin at their own house?
Right.
And we know that Kevin's phone in particular is up because I believe it's that night that he makes a call to the pizza company and orders his own cheese pizza. That happens the day they visit the Murphys, I believe. So
you're right.
Phones are up and running.
I was willing to give a fringe benefit of the doubt because we see the branch come down on the phone line. And I thought, well, maybe that damaged the specific line going from the pole to the McAllister's house specifically. But no, you're right. He's got the phone back.
His phones are up, and then on top of that, I believe it's the next day that you hear Peter on the phone calling a French operator, which I also don't understand because he's already placed an international call to the Murphys from Rob's house. Why is he talking to an operator that doesn't speak English? He's gone through this process before. Why is he hitting a hang up now? And who is he trying to call at this point?
He goes, I'm looking for my son. Do you know where he is? What are you talking about, Peter? Are you talking to someone in France?
You know exactly where your son's at. Why are you asking this person that?
You're not looking for your son. You know where he is. So here's the other thing. Before all that, we're talking 8 hours after however long it takes, right, to fly from Chicago to Paris. We'll say about 8 hours, maybe, right? Kate and the rest of the family, they're getting on the phones. Kate calls the village police department of Winnetka. So that, I don't know, maybe that's a mile away or two from their house. Yeah. Right? Maybe their phones, obviously their phones aren't out, right? She's able to reach them. Yeah. So
they probably got a hard line, like in the Matrix. That's probably why their phone didn't go down.
Straight to Paris.
Straight to the company.
So they send a police officer over to the house. Does Kate ever establish talking to the police? Like, I can't reach the house because the phones are down?
No, that's another thing. Okay, so that's actually the problem with the Ma Bell line in general. That plot point never matters in any of the scenes that we actually see.
Right.
They never have trouble reaching any place on Lincoln Boulevard as a result of the phone lines going down. What I think is that line was there from an earlier version of the script, and then there were all of these other subsequent scenes added over top of that, and it just got missed that this phone line thing was supposed to matter a little more than it actually does, because the ultimate purpose of that line is so that the McAllisters can't talk to Kevin, so that he does feel like he's made them disappear. And so that is the purpose of that Ma Bell instant.
That is clear. We know that we have to eliminate the very easy way for the family to contact Kevin, but then so many things continue to rely on phones.
Yeah. And the ultimate question hanging over all of this, why didn't you call Kevin? Every day you're bothering neighbors, trying to get in touch with them. How do you not realize your son locked at home and he didn't leave the house? He's obviously still there, and you probably have an answering machine too, right? And whenever you got a call that went to an answering machine back in the day, because maybe listeners don't know this, but the answering machine message was played out loud.
Right.
And you would hear it from multiple rooms. And if Kevin's in the house, how does he not hear his parents' voice talking to him saying, "We're in Paris"?
Guys, why did you never call home?
I don't get it.
Why did you do this? Kate is going from airport to airport into a van to drive cross country with some polka bums. Like, she's pulling out all the stops except to call the house.
Nope. Doesn't call the house, even when she gets back to Scranton. And I've got to presume that the reason that they don't call the house, at least in the mind of John Hughes as he's writing the script, is that they believe the phone lines are down. They believe they're still down.
They could believe that until the very first moment that the only way of getting in touch with anyone is to call them.
Yeah. I just don't buy that Kate gets to Scranton or Dallas and doesn't at least try, before she starts begging for tickets, she doesn't at least try to call her son at home.
So this whole thing, I think we could counter for all of those out there who, yes, rightfully in their way, say this movie could have never happened in the age of cell phones. Mm-hmm. I think what we are suggesting is that doesn't even really matter.
No, could have happened in the age of phones in general.
In this very age of phones in which this film takes place, it's really seeming like there was no reason that Kevin was never contacted. Gasp.
Yeah. I got to say, I really have been under the illusion that Home Alone is a perfect film for all of these years, for all of these decades. And now I'm starting to realize there are a few holes here. And I don't know how I feel about that. I've put a lot of faith in this movie. I've, sort of staked my career on it, and it's a little jarring to have to sort of explore this with you and realize there are these problems in this film.
Well, look, I mean, we are clearly invested in this little movie,
financially and emotionally.
Little film by John Hughes and Chris Columbus.
Yeah,
but look, tough love.
Yeah,
I think we owe it. I think the film has given us a lot.
Yeah.
And it's our turn to just give a little bit back.
Do you know what this says to me? It says that not every film needs to hold up to scrutiny on every level. If there's enough there, if there's enough to get you in the feels, to get you in your heart, to get you to want to watch that movie every Christmas for 30 years, then maybe those plot holes don't matter. If the wet bandits falling in all of these traps cracks you up every single time that you see it, then you know what? Who cares if the McAllisters didn't call Lincoln Boulevard? I don't.
A good story is often a contract with the audience.
Yeah.
And part of that contract is sometimes what we call the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
The storyteller says, I have an engaging tale to tell you for the purposes of you being entertained. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to be entertained and you want to pick it to pieces, well, then no one's really having any fun around here, are they?
Yeah. Unless it's a film that deserves to be picked to pieces. But you know what? I don't think Home Alone is one of them.
I'd have to agree.
Speaking of telecommunications,
oh yeah,
our producer has just finished transcribing that Morse code message we got from presumably our informant in Sheboygan.
From the home front.
Unnamed informant.
Producers just handed me this here sheet. All right. Jimmy, this is what it says.
Give it to me straight.
Jerry Novak, grip on Sheboygan, tightening. Polka...
Tightening?
Tightening. That must be tightening. Polka Fest attendance mandatory.
Oh, boy.
Public edu cut redirected to polka history.
Oh, boy.
Bill Sikorsky, remain coma. Novak continues pursuit of Joey Z, Jimmy Dantes, then says, FCC alerted, stay vigilant.
Oh, well, that last note, I didn't even need to hear that. I've been vigilant the last several months.
That's a lot of Morse code.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they chose to include stay vigilant at the end of that tome, they must really mean it.
Yeah. Thank you, unnamed informant. Message received, and we will stay vigilant. And it sounds like things are disastrous on the home front. I can't imagine what it's like living in Sheboygan with Jerry Novak in charge.
This is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, how much polka history can some kid endure before they go crazy? This is unheard of. But you know what? All we can do is keep up the good fight. Keep talking about this. Obviously, we're getting under Jerry Novak's skin. And you know what? We're not going to shut up, Jerry. We know you listen to the broadcast.
We're not afraid of you, Jerry.
Yeah.
Fists in the air.
I'll tell you this right now. I'm not afraid anymore.
I'm not afraid anymore.
I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore.
Broadcast live from our studio in
Undisclosed location.
The Long Road Home Alone is hosted by Jimmy Dantes and Joey Z and produced by Pat Muldoon. Be sure to tune in next time. Don't forget your reading glasses and keep the change, you filthy animals.